a little bit about the new neonatal provisions.
And it basically allows parents to have dedicated, a statutory right to have dedicated pay and leave during the time where their baby is receiving neonatal care. And the important thing is that that doesn't kind of eat into any of their current family entitlement, so into their maternity or paternity leave, for example. And neonatal care, so that's the name given for care for newborn babies. And in this particular case, for this piece of legislation, it covers care that's given within the first 28 days of the baby's life and for 7 or more continuous days. And the reason I mention that is because it doesn't currently cover a situation where the baby needs a loss of hospital treatment or that neonatal care after the first 28 days of the baby's life, if it starts after that point. And neonatal care, in this context, covers a certain kind of care. So it could be within the hospital, or it could be medical care that's given after discharged from hospital, but a certain kind of consultant or specialist is giving that care. And the way that it's done, so it's structured in 2 tiers, so you can take it in 2 different kind of ways. So the employees can take that leave whilst the baby is in neonatal care or during the first week after they've left neonatal care, and that's called Tier 1, and that can be used in continuous blocks of from a week upwards. And there are 12 weeks altogether that can be taken of neonatal care leave. And then Tier 2 is if you take that leave more than a week after the baby's left neonatal care. And in that case, you must take all of the leave that you want to take in one continuous block. So that's the other thing to remember. If the baby is in neonatal care or in the first week after neonatal care can be interrupted by other kinds of pre-booked family leave, things like paternity or shared parental leave. And then the remaining period of neonatal care leave can be tagged on at the end of mat leave, for example. The leave must be taken within the first 68 weeks of the baby's life. So again, it allows that time after the maternity leave or the shared parental leave to be tagged on to the end. The statutory pay for that is, there's guidance from the government in the same way as lots of the other statutory family leaves. So there's a weekly pay or 90% of the average weekly earnings, whichever is the lower. So in the same way as the other family leaves. And then just to remember that any money that's received is paid in the same way as wages. Again, the same as maternity, for example, the statutory provisions for that. So deducted from that will be tax and NI, etc. There are statutory notice requirements and eligibility requirements, of course, as well, and they are all set out in legislation, and it's really important that employers understand what it is exactly that they need to notify their employees. But it's worth mentioning that things like the statutory notice provisions, some employers are looking at ways of just being discretionary about the way that they require people to make that notice, just in case of unusual circumstances or if something changes very quickly in that family's circumstances. So in terms of what we're telling our clients to do, our employer clients, so things like considering creating a policy, that's one of the first things to do. It's useful to have that guidance, not just for the employees, but for managers, for HR as well, to understand how you're going to implement things. Considering whether or not you're going to enhance the pay, for example, if you're enhancing other family leaves, will you do the same for neonatal? And also to bear in mind that certain protections that are afforded to people on family leave in terms of redundancy proposals and processes will be the same in this particular circumstance. So if employees are taking neonatal care leave for over 6 weeks, they're protected in the same way as other people who have those protections within redundancy, and that protection will last until the baby is 18 months old as well.